This is as excited as I've been for a hockey game in a long, long time. I've heard people say, I've read people write, yeah, that this is the biggest Stanley Cup final game ever, biggest Stanley Cup final game of their lifetime. Let's talk about it with Jason Demers. Does an excellent job, not only for NHL Network, but had an incredible career. I think I have this right. Exactly 700 games in the NHL, which is very cool. He's played for the Panthers. His last game was for the Oilers, and he is the man. Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
What's going on, Ross? How you doing, my man?
I
Thanks for
am
having
doing
me.
awesome. Yeah. So exactly 700. Was that obviously by design?
It was not. No, it was I ended up having a pretty bad injury that kept me out for about a year, and then I came back and Edmonton was gracious enough to give me a tryout. I spent the year in the minors, and then they gave me my last game in San Jose where I started my career. So it was incredible. I got to go out on my own sword and kind of choose the way I wanted to end my career, which as athletes is so hard to do, and we're not always allowed that privilege. So for me, it was incredible, and I really do so grateful that I was given that opportunity. So I have a little stock in both teams right now, Panthers and Oilers. So it's it's tough for me to pick who I want to win.
Yeah, really. I want to get to that. And I'm curious your thoughts on what I've seen some of your colleagues say about this being the most anticipated and or the biggest Stanley Cup final game ever or in their lifetimes. Are you on board with that?
Yeah, I do think, especially this generation, and you could even go back within this century, just because there's so many incredible storylines. The down 0-3, there's only two teams that have come back in the Stanley Cup Finals. Both of them were in 1945 and 1942, and only the Maple Leafs have done that. So typically, when you're down 0-3, it's all but over. They've managed to scratch and claw. Connor McDavid's having a historic year. It's and you look on the Panthers side, Bobrovsky was probably the odds-on favorite to win the Conn Smythe, and then all of a sudden, Connor McDavid takes it from him. Paul Maurice, the head coach, hasn't won in his whole career, and this would be his second back-to-back finals loss. So there's just so many incredible storylines, and obviously you touched on it. It's Canada. It's Canada. This is our sport. It's been 30 years since there's been a Canadian team to win. Edmonton, 40 years that they've won. So it's typically a sport that we should be winning every year. And obviously the players that are within each organization are Canadian, American, European. So, it's a little bit different, but just to be in that building in game 6 at Rogers Place and to hear those fans, how bad they want it, and the sound pales in comparison. And listen, the Panthers, Amaranth Bank, it's a great rink. It's really loud, but it's nothing compared to Rogers Place and Canadian fans. So it was just amazing to see, and they want this so bad. So it'd be great. I'd be happy with either one. It's been a phenomenal series, and it's going to be a barn burner tonight. So
Jason, why do you think it's been 31 years? I mean, you are Canadian, you've played for Canadian teams and teams in the States. Is there anything you can put your finger on as to why none of the Canadian teams have won it in so long?
I mean, there's so many factors, like obviously the way the organization is run. There's a lot of pressure in Canada that potentially could hinder teams because media as can be such a vacuum out there, and they just want the teams to win so bad, and sometimes put unwanted pressure on the players. And honestly, it's just one of those. There's more American teams than there is Canadian teams, so it really, they're kind of at odds. But for it to be this long is pretty wild. So if we could see this, then pull this off, I mean, not only a historic comeback, but a historic comeback for a Canadian team being this long of a drought. I mean, there's something poetic about it. So we're gonna see what they can do tonight, and obviously, Connor McDavid is gonna have a big hand in that. So if he could also get the points record for a single playoffs that would be pretty awesome as well. But it's like I said, there's just so many different storylines and so many angles of this, and it being Canadian team first time 30 years. I mean, it would be just such a beautiful ending to the season.
We're talking with Jason Demers, does a terrific job for NHL Network covering the entire league. Especially, I guess I'm curious, what happened, Jason? I filled in for Dan 10 days ago. It was Friday, June 14th, and it was 3-0. The Panthers were up. And I said, you know what? They're not going to sweep them. I think the Oilers will get one. I had Steve Levy on the show. I said, are the Panthers just that much better? And he's like, yeah, they are. Like, they just have this well-rounded team and their goalie's better. And how did it just flip like a switch like that?
Well, you're obviously the jinx, so we figured that out. I mean, not it was wild. They were down 3-0. Chris Knobloch comes out and says, we still have 10 days of hockey left. And we're all sitting there like, this guy's delusional. Like, they're getting worked in every aspect of the game. And you look at some of the underlying numbers, and they're actually outperforming Florida for big chunks. And they kind of just found something in that room. They put together near the end of game 3, they put together this Henrique Brown, Matthias Janmark line, and this line kind of just flipped the script, and they started getting some great goaltending, and it just seemed like game 4, that building was rocking in Edmonton, and it's like they just took that energy and they've just been riding that for the last 3 games. And you know how it is being a player, momentum. That people say, oh, it's not a thing. It's game to game, but momentum and confidence are different. But when you have the confidence level higher than the other team, you're probably going to outperform them. And right now, it just seems like the confidence for Edmonton is through the roof, and they've really caught Florida off guard. So they got to figure something out soon, Florida, because the last game, it just seemed like they've forgotten kind of how to play, and they're doing a lot of uncharacteristic things. So, and usually when I see that, being a former player and now commentating, I'm like, well, when they're making the same mistake over and over again, it's typically they're feeling the pressure and their confidence levels are low. So that's a scary thought when you look at that, because for huge parts of the season, this Florida team's like the most consistent team and probably wire to wire, one of the better teams in the league, if not the best. So you think they're going to figure it out. I do think they're going to have their best game of the series tonight, but Edmonton is just on a different level. So if they keep riding that momentum, I mean, again, it's crazy to think like, I was part of a reverse sweep. I unfortunately was the guy that got reverse swept, and you never think it's going to happen until it happens. And it's one of the worst feelings. And the pressure gets so big and inside that locker room and around, because you're expected to win. You're up 3-0. You should win. Then you lose game 4, you lose game 5, and then game 6, you're like, well, if we don't win this one, it's a coin flip. It's a coin flip, and they're coming downhill. So you got to think in that room, there's a lot of doubt, and they got to quell those thoughts quick, because otherwise it's going to be a short night for them.
That is great stuff, Jason. I'm curious, with this being game 7, I'm assuming this will be the best ratings for a hockey game in a long, long time.
Better be.
Yeah. Well, I was saying earlier in the show, I've got tickets in the second row for the Hershey Bears in the AHL. That's
Unreal.
where I live, and I love it. It's a great arena, the Giant Center in Central Pennsylvania. It's an awesome arena. I love it. But I feel like on some level, TV doesn't do it justice to just how fast you guys are flying around the ice. I feel like, is there anything that could happen tonight or anything that you have an idea of that could help grow the game even more from a television perspective?
I mean, unless you're strapping a GoPro to the guys and so many cameras, it's too hard. It's one of those, I always tell people
They should do that. Why not do that?
they should just have cameras all over the place. And I mean, you could maybe bring the camera closer and have one of those, on a wire, kind of like they did in the NFL, where it's kind of traversing the whole rink. But I don't know. It's one of those sports that, you need to be live just to feel it and feel the energy. And I mean, listen, Connor McDavid's best player right now and maybe of all time. And to watch him live is something special just to ISO cam him. So I always tell people if you can get out to a game, that's always a good way to kind of get you locked in and start, but it does it zero justice on TV. It's a great product on TV. I love what they do, but it's just a different animal when you're in person and one of those sports that feel in the crowd and hearing the hits and the boards and the puck hit the glass. It's just it's poetry, man. It's a great thing to watch and a great thing to be a part of.
Wait, did you say Connor McDavid might be the best player of all time? I mean, I knew he's the best player now, but we're talking like Gordie Howe and Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux. Doesn't he need to win for us to make a comment like that? He's really that good, Jason?
I know I catch so much flack for this, and it could be recency bias, but listen, he needs to win. He needs to have his name on a cup, but just the level of the players now, the equipment, the technology, it's so much far advanced than it was back in the day and years prior in the Gretzky era and things like that. And not to say that if you put Gretzky and Lemieux in this era, would they do as well? Sure, they'd be up there, but for what Connor is doing in this era and dominating this much, it just goes without saying. Like, we haven't had a player this dominant ever in such a long time. You could say Sidney Crosby, but by winning, but just purely on his own, he is just so talented and so incredible. And I mean, what he's done in this playoff in this era, it just can't be denied. He's incredible. The things he does every game, it's I can't even explain it. And we sit up there as analysts and we played the game, and I played against him and felt what it was like to play against him, and watching him every night in and night out. We just sit up there every night. We're like, this is a joke. Like, he's playing a video game and we're just players in this game, and he just does what he wants. So for him, I think right now he's the best player in our game. I think if he wins, I mean, he's in my top 3 already. If he wins, I would probably, and he's still got, another 8 to 10 years. So I do think he'll win again if he doesn't win tonight. And by then, I mean, it's hard to deny him. So I don't think the records of Gretzky will be touched, but again, he was shooting on guys that could even go down. The butterfly wasn't even invented back then, which is when the goalies go down in that little position. They just laid down or kicked their legs out. So, I mean, it was a little bit, I won't say it was easier to score back then because the technology wasn't there, but it just was a different era of scoring and goaltenders and defenders. So I kind of stand on that pedestal, saying I do think Connor's up. He's top 3 for me right now, and if he wins tonight, I'd be hard not to say he's the greatest right now, and then given another 8 to 10 years.
Jason, we showed a picture of your headshot. You got no front teeth.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at you right now. You got a great smile, good-looking guy. How many of those are your own teeth?
These 4 are not mine. They got fixed up, and then parts of a couple on the bottom. But yeah, I was sitting on the dentist chair this off season and getting these things fixed, and then I was like, well, I think I'm retired because there's no way I'm letting these things get knocked out. I've had enough. I've had enough of this. So I just said, that's it. So I called my wife and I was like, I think I'm done. Yeah. I look way too good now.
So hockey guys don't file retirement papers. They just send in their dentist bill.
Yeah.
And that's how the league knows they're done.
Yeah. I submitted to insurance and I said, thanks guys. Appreciate it.
That is incredible. Jason, thanks so much for the time, man. Check him out, NHL Network. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks, Ross. Have a good one, all right?
Absolutely.